What's up? Welcome into Foxboro Rush. I'm George Balekji. He's Keagan Stiefel, the man with the strong mustache, as Mark Herzlich once said. Keeks, how we doing today?
I'm doing all right. I'm excited to talk some football. Maybe not Patriots Day. Let's take a break from the Patriots.
No, we're talking Pats.
All right, we'll talk some Pats then.
It's going to be on the heels of Jayden Daniels' performance. We know that's going to start the narrative of, well, maybe Drake Maye should play if Jayden Daniels is looking good and Caleb Williams is throwing. We're going to talk about all that. What's wrong with the Bengals? A lot. And our boy, Matt Lively, CBS Sports Bay Area, joins the show as well to help us preview the 49ers-Patriots matchup. At the end of the interview, it became a really, really hard interrogation, and I feel bad for Matt, but at the end, I was shining a light in his face, basically saying, where can the Patriots find a room and space to get a win? And he said, George, I'm sorry. I swore on the Bible. I have my lawyer coming. There's nothing they can do. And I said, you know what? You're right, Matt. So you guys will love that interview. Keegan, I don't give them hope this Sunday.
Strong words from both you and Matt. You both had the Patriots scoring a touchdown. I don't see it personally, but we'll see. We'll let it play out on Sunday.
That run defense is a little susceptible. We'll get into that. We'll talk it with Matt. Let's start out with the question, should Drake Maye learn by playing? And we're going to say this because we saw what Jayden Daniels did. And everyone knows, you look back on the draft, number 1 overall pick was Caleb Williams to the Chicago Bears. With 3 elite receivers, 2 good tight ends, a very good defense, supposed to be a good play caller, and supposed to be a good offensive line. Those last 2 have not shown through, yes. 2nd overall pick, Jayden Daniels to the Commanders. Dynamic, fastest runner out of all the first-round quarterbacks. Really good deep ball thrower. Good receiver in Terry McLaurin. Okay, number 2 in Luke McCaffrey. But a great play caller in Cliff Kingsbury. Then the 3rd overall pick was Drake Maye. No good receivers, bad offensive line, first-time offensive play caller. A defense we don't know what they have yet. First-time head coach, first-time general manager. No left tackle. You guys have heard it from me. Jayden Daniels went out and completed almost 92% of his passes against the Bengals, Keegan. He had that game-winning touchdown pass to Terry McLaurin where he dropped back in the face of pressure, getting smacked in the mouth, under the chin, dropped a dart into the end zone, deep ball pass, perfect to Scary Terry, and they won the game. Did this have you thinking, hey, maybe Drake Maye should start playing?
I didn't think about Drake Maye for a second.
I love that.
Maybe that's because I enjoyed watching competent offensive football. That was a really fun game. It turned out to be a fun game. But I couldn't think about Drake Maye in the moment because just because somebody that's in a similar situation, we'll call it, it's really not all that similar, but similar in terms of coming into the league, lower-rated team. Obviously, they had a high pick. But Jayden Daniels walked into a situation where he was starting right away. Drake Maye, as we all know, backup. He's going to be sitting behind Jacoby Brissett for weeks, if not months, to start the season. So I couldn't really compare the two just because they were high draft picks.
Yeah.
But I will say, by watching Jayden Daniels and seeing how he's been good through 3 weeks, but on Monday night, he was
possessed,
unbelievable. Like, as good as I've seen a rookie quarterback play in a single game. When I saw that, it made me think, maybe the Patriots, if they didn't win that game in December, if they didn't have to go and beat the Broncos on Christmas or whenever that was, maybe
Broncos
they have
were Christmas Eve.
Christmas Eve. Maybe they have the number 2 pick.
They shouldn't beat the Steelers that Monday night either.
They shouldn't. Listen, they shouldn't have won any games last year with the way they were going.
True.
But, maybe if they had the number 2 pick, would they have taken Jayden Daniels? Or were they set on Drake Maye? We've heard reports, obviously, that Elliott Wolf was comfortable with all 3 and that he leaned in the order that they went. It would have been Williams, Daniels, Maye. But the one thing I did think of is, maybe the Patriots missed out on a hell of a player, even though we don't know what Drake Maye is yet. But it looks like Jayden Daniels is the real deal.
I like Jayden Daniels for the upside with his legs. I don't like Jayden Daniels that he doesn't throw over the middle of the field. He did not complete a single pass between the hash marks last night. Now, one was right on the hashes, so I'll give him something. And look, he was balling the F out. So for me to take anything away from his performance, 254 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, again, almost 92% completion percentage, I'm not going to. Troy Aikman kept bringing it up too. And here's the thing that I don't like about Jayden Daniels. It's that frame, dude.
Yeah.
And it's Lamar came in, he was skinny, but he had wide shoulders, and he's poured into that frame. He's bulked up. Jayden Daniels doesn't know how to avoid hits. And some of the rushes I've seen him early on in the season, I'm like, what are you doing quarterback powers with him? He still doesn't know how to avoid them. He looks like Sonic the Hedgehog when you take a hit in that video game and you explode and all the coins go all over. That's how Jayden Daniels would bounce off of SEC linebackers tackling him.
Takes some cartoonish hits.
Exactly.
Like Looney Tunes style.
But he's the best deep ball passer out of those 3 top quarterbacks, in my opinion.
Yeah, undoubtedly.
And one thing we can't brush over, Keegan, is Cliff Kingsbury is on the sidelines communicating plays to him. And I give credit to Jayden Daniels. Those close-ups of him at the end of the game, he was like, let's go, get the play call in. Like yelling at Cliff Kingsbury, having those stones, having that confidence to command his head coach like that. But what stands out to me, Keegan, about Jayden Daniels, during his time between Arizona State and LSU, with 1 season lost to COVID, he started 55 games in college. Yeah. He's a 5-year starter coming out. Just 23 years old for a 5-year starter, but 55 games. Drake Maye is a 2-year starter with 26 games under his belt. I've done this before, and I'm going to keep it concise on this one. Quarterbacks that were 22 in their first season and have panned out and been a high first-round pick, Kyler Murray, Justin Herbert. The last 2, you can go, Tua Tagovailoa, Trevor Lawrence. T-Law conversation for another time.
Right.
Quarterbacks with 30 or less starts that panned out, CJ Stroud had 25. Joe Burrow had 28. Kyler had 29. That is me going through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 quarterbacks since 2018. Only 3 panned out with 30 or less starts, and Joe Burrow was pro-ready coming out of college. Yeah. Kyler Murray is dynamic and plays above his height. He finds a way. CJ Stroud is the complete anomaly. Just 25 starts in college and was 21 when he kicked off that season as a rookie for the Texans before turning 22. Drake Maye will turn 23 he's 22, has just 26 starts.
Just turned 22.
Awful offensive line, bad offensive play caller. That experience matters. And when we talk about Jayden Daniels, Keegan, I love to pick your brain about this because you love college football just like me. Caleb Williams and Jayden Daniels are ready to start from day one.
Yeah.
You could not find an expert on the NFL draft or someone that knows what they're talking about college football that said Drake Maye is ready to start week 1. And that is a huge difference we cannot ignore.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it with the 3 guys that you were talking about with Burrow and Kyler, and who was the third one that you mentioned?
So guys that were 30 or less starts that panned out.
Yes. CJ Stroud?
I only went back to 2018. I have a longer doc, but basically quick one. Right. CJ Stroud, Joe Burrow, Kyler Murray.
So who did they sit behind? Very legit, at least college quarterbacks, and then in one case, a guy who turned out to be Burrow
transferred, struggled his first year at LSU.
Right, he sat behind Dwayne Haskins, and obviously Dwayne Haskins didn't work out in the NFL, but he was top 2-3 quarterback in the country when he was in college. CJ Stroud sat behind Justin Fields for a year. Kyler Murray sat behind Baker Mayfield. Like, these are legit quarterbacks that they sat behind and learned from. Can you tell me who Drake Maye sat behind at UNC his freshman year?
No idea.
Neither can I. I tried to look it up. I didn't have enough time.
No.
So it wasn't anybody that I can remember. It clearly wasn't important enough for us to remember. So this is the thing with, I think me and you have been on the same wavelength in terms of when we think Drake Maye should start. He's not ready, not because physically he's not ready. And he doesn't have the gifts. Like, we know he has that.
Yep.
There is no need to even risk the possibility of starting him too early to where he either gets injured behind a bad offensive line, he loses his confidence because he can't, elevate the playmakers around him because it is the NFL level and it's so much harder to elevate the players around you, or the coaching staff isn't going to put him in a situation to succeed. You don't want to risk any of that. That's why he's sitting right now. Not because he's not better than Jacoby Brissett. He's more talented than Jacoby Brissett. But what does Brissett have? He has the experience. He has the trust in his teammates. He's a captain, and he's played in this system before. He knows what he's doing. So those are the big things. That's why Drake Maye is sitting right now. We're going to talk about, until he starts, until he becomes a starter, we're going to talk about why is he sitting. He's a better player than Jacoby Brissett is. But the fact of the matter is, the Patriots have no reason to start him because whether they play him and he plays well or he doesn't, it doesn't change the outlook on the team this year. So why waste the time? Why risk putting him in a bad situation when you don't need to?
The one, and I looked it up, so did our producer Brendan, got in my ear. It was Sam Howell in 2021. Throwing for over 3,000. That's what I said. I'm like, wait, it had to be Sam Howell. It was Sam Howell.
Yeah, it was a real quarterback. So I feel bad.
It was a real quarterback, because I was going to say that. Like, did you cover the Commanders game with me last season when Sam Howell threw all over the Patriots defense?
I did not.
A lot of good, a lot of bad. One thing you can't say, Sam Howell can sling it, and he's electric.
Yeah.
He's no longer with the Commanders. I'm not going to get into that. But a real quarterback started over Drake Maye.
Can't believe I forgot Sam Howell.
If I went back
look.
to 20, you're better than that. I know you know that.
I know.
If I went back to 2015, Jameis Winston, number 1 overall pick, 27 games played, 21 years old, bust for the Buccaneers. Marcus Mariota, second pick, 41 games played, 22 years old, bust. Next season, Wentz, number 2, 19 games played, 24 years old in his first season, was an MVP before he tore his ACL, but no matter what, it seemed like he would have ran himself out of Philly as he's done every team.
Right.
Jared Goff, 22 years old, 37 games played, a bust for the Rams. Mitchell Trubisky in 2017, sorry to our director Ryan. Second overall pick, 34 games played, 23 years old, bust. Who knows if that double doink doesn't happen, what happens with Mitchell Trubisky,
right.
But I think water finds its level. Sam Darnold in 2018, he was 21 his first start, only 27 games played, bust. Baker Mayfield in 2018, 40 games played, 23 years old, making his first start, first overall pick. The Browns ran him out of town. He won a playoff game for them. But it took him 3 more teams to find his footing. So he's a bust.
I think that's the big thing with all of these guys is you see the ones who end up being okay. And obviously Sam Darnold is in a great situation right now in Minnesota. And Baker Mayfield's playing his ass off in
Sam
Tampa
was
Bay.
a bust at that pick.
But at that pick, they did not work out for the team that picked them. And what did they all do? They started right away. They were day one, walk into the building. It's their team.
Yeah.
And they had to go elsewhere. They had to learn behind other quarterbacks. They had to play in multiple systems before they eventually figured it out. That's been our point the entire time. So when you get frustrated about the fact that Drake Maye's not playing, maybe think about that just a little bit.
Kyler,
keep it in the back of your mind.
29 games played, 22 years old. He got that second contract. Number 1 overall pick. You're paying him. You'd rather have a quarterback than nobody. I'm not going to say he's a bust yet, but he hasn't lived up to being number 1 overall pick. 2020 was the exception I went because I went top 6. Justin Herbert's the one comparison I'll give to Drake Maye. When you think of physical stature, when you think of an awful situation, terrible offensive line, Anthony Lynn and Brandon Staley, 2 guys that didn't know what the heck they were doing until they got Rashawn Slater, Zion Johnson, and Joe Alt in there. Slater and Alt might be out this week, but Justin Herbert, 44 games played at Oregon.
Yeah.
Tua Tagovailoa, 33 games played, 22 years old for Alabama. Joe Burrow, we covered. Trey Lance, not even going to go there. Zach Wilson, 30 games played, 22 years old, bust. Played right away. Trey Lance, played right away. Trevor Lawrence, 40 games played, 22 years old. CJ Stroud in this whole list, aside from Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert and Kyler. That's 4 names. I went from 2023 to 2015. Those are 4 guys that worked. There's nothing that hurts with sitting. Maybe this could hurt Jayden Daniels. I don't know yet. Same thing with Caleb Williams. We have to see. But with how bad the offensive line play is, with how bad the receivers are that can't get separation, don't watch Jayden Daniels and rush Drake Maye into start.
Right. And the playing right away thing, usually the reason that it's a problem is because who are they playing? Like, what team are they playing on? Chicago, we talked about all offseason and even the first couple of weeks of the year, all-time situation for a number 1 pick to walk into. With
Love
the receivers,
foundation.
Great foundation. Washington, hell of a lot better foundation than you have in New England.
Yeah.
You know, the offensive line's still a little iffy.
It's okay, but they invested in it.
They have a number 1 receiver.
Yep.
They had 3 second-round picks this year. They invested in that team with Jayden Daniels.
Yep.
So a lot of young talent that they're going to try to bring up with him. The Patriots don't have that.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem. There's no one that you can look on the Patriots offense and say that's a foundational piece for the next, playoff Super Bowl contending team. Maybe Ramondre Stevenson. He'll probably be 30 by then, and who wants a 30-year-old running back? Mike Onwenu has taken a step back. So we're saying the same thing here. I mean, we're kind of going back and forth, but this is the reason he doesn't play, is because the situation is not right for him.
What did you make of the report? It came from Albert Breer saying, quote, in the morning, Monday morning quarterback, this won't be a full-on redshirt year. They'll be patient, but Maye's progress has gotten to the point where the expectation is he'll earn his way onto the field relatively soon, with the one caveat being that the Patriots offense will have to show that it can play the way it needs to in order to support a rookie quarterback. Key one real quick, Keegan. The expectation is he'll earn his way onto the field relatively soon. What do you think of that? What do you think relatively soon is? That is such a gray area.
That's why you wrote it that way, right? Like you give yourself a little room for error there, because you say relatively soon. That could mean within the next 2 weeks. That could mean within the next month and a half. Mid-season. Relatively soon in the span of somebody's career. what's 8 weeks, right? Relatively soon.
Relatively soon, as we're talking about this September 24th.
Yeah.
Week 4, San Fran. Week 5 versus Miami. Week 6 versus Houston. Week 7 in London. You're not debuting him in London, I believe. Week 8 versus Jets. Week 9 at Tennessee. Week 10 at Chicago. That Jets game's October 27th. The Tennessee game's November 3rd, excuse me. That's relatively soon.
Yeah. Month and a half.
And that's why you see that report. And with the expectation, that last sentence, the Patriots offense will have to show that it can play the way it needs to in order to support a rookie quarterback. Keegan, I haven't seen that in 3 games. I don't care. I have not seen a glimpse of that.
There have been a lot of expectations on the Patriots coming into this year. The expectation was that Caden Wallace was going to be able to make the move to the left side. And the only reason he ever started a game on the left side is because everybody else got hurt. Chikuma
or left the team.
Quit on the team. That's the only reason he ever started out there. The expectation was that they were going to run the ball on Thursday in New York. What did they do? They decided they were going to go play action. And it was maybe the worst coaching decision that we've seen them make.
They threw the ball
weeks.
7 of the first 9 plays, Keith.
Right. They did not establish the run whatsoever. So a lot of expectations in New England. They haven't, the expectation that they were going to spend a lot of money this offseason. Remember the burn the cash $50
million in cash, baby, rolling into it to next year.
No, yeah, exactly. So they're going to be able to burn that cash at some point. The expectation was that they'll burn that cash relatively soon, let's say. So it's within the next couple of years. So the expectation, I don't want to crap all over Burt Breer here, but he wrote this in a way where he gives himself a lot of room to maneuver. The expectation was that they were gonna start him relatively soon. If he makes a start at any point throughout this season, he'll be able to call that a win. So I don't put a whole lot of stock into that report.
It's even, and I understand where he's coming from. I like that he shined light on the 70-30 snap share with the first team in practice, where Drake Maye's 30% of snaps are coming from plays that Jacoby's comfortable with. Jacoby, you're good? All right, cool. Drake, get in there. You're running this play.
Right.
Let's give those first team reps. Let's build up the chemistry. I like that he did that. And he's doing his job of the Patriots wisely leaked it out. I don't know if it's wise of he's going to play this year to ward off the Wolves, but it gets people thirsty. But to put in that line of, with the team able to support a rookie quarterback, brother, there have been 11 sacks and 30 quarterback hits and 96 dropbacks so far. 42 pressures and 96 dropbacks. 23% of Jacoby Brissett's pressures turn into sacks.
Yeah.
A quarter of a pressure. I mean, it's literally 42 pressures, 11 sacks. Like, it's right there. A quarter of the pressures are turning into sacks. He holds on to the ball too long at times, but the receivers don't get open. We saw it Thursday night, Keegan. The left side couldn't pick up a stunt. The middle and the right side couldn't pick up a regular blitz. Like, unchecked through the B gap, eating your quarterback alive. That is not going to support a rookie quarterback who doesn't yet know how to take a hit. The way he went down on that first scramble he had, where he saw the read and went and Sherwood dropped him, bro, stay low. You're a big dude. Drake Maye's big.
Yeah.
Stay low, run low, slide.
He got spine busted. Like, Batista was out there and gave him the whole,
right, it was like a pile drive. I like that spine busted.
Ridiculous.
I'm not a wrestling fan.
You got to get into the wrestling. Anyways, we'll move on from that.
I've seen it live. It's very exciting.
Very exciting.
SmackDown at the Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey. It was a lot of fun.
I was thinking Prudential Center in Boston.
Yeah, but
I mean, this is the thing with Maye is you like to think because he's more athletic than Jacoby Brissett that he might be able to escape these pressures and, go make a play. But we saw it on Thursday. He did get a chance to play, and he moved the ball down the field a little bit against backups and with backups and in a situation where the Jets were just trying to let them bleed clock and, let them throw it underneath, make the tackle, whatever. It wasn't a real situation that you're going to put any stock into, right? So, we're saying the same thing here with Maye, and we're going to continue to say it until it becomes apparent that he is the best option. But right now, I don't think that he is because the way that they're going to play football games is protect the ball, avoid turnovers, run the ball as much as you can, and try to play the possession game. And that's just not what they envision this offense to be when he eventually does start. Mm-hmm. So there's no sense in trying to make that change right now. There really isn't.
Let's see them actually run the ball too. Again, you pointed out they've run that bootleg right out of it and let an unchecked linebacker off the edge. He did not give a damn about the run game.
No.
He did not give a damn. No. Went right for Jacoby. Hey, coach, is it illegal? Yeah, it's legal. Okay, cool. I'm going to go hit him. And that's what they did.
And it's one of the big things that we've seen, too, is Ramondre Stevenson said it after the first game. I think Jacoby Brissett also kind of backed him up that they were doing that outside zone stuff, and at the end of the game, he said, "Let me run power. I don't want to do the gaps. I just let me run what I'm used to. Let me go pick up a couple first downs and end it." And that worked out. They've gone back. They've gone back to what they kind of installed this offseason, the AVP system, and you've seen them take 2 steps back. They ran the ball all over Seattle. They fumbled that game away at the end.
Yep.
But in week 3, they did not establish the run. When they tried to go to it, they were leaving gaps open for these guys to shoot all over the place and not giving Ramondre a chance in hell to run the ball. So I think they have other things to worry about before they go stick Drake Maye in there and try to have him save the franchise. Maybe learn how to run the ball first. Relearn how to run the ball. You want to be a running team so bad. Get a couple first downs, and then maybe Drake Maye can play.
Do they draft Kelvin Banks or Will Campbell? Because Kelvin Banks is better. I'm joking, but he's better in the outside zone. Keegan,
I was about to go for it.
We have more. We're going to save that for another time. Again, I run through their schedule.
Yep.
At San Fran, Nick Bosa and Malik Collins are going to eat you alive, even without Javon Hargrave. Week 5 versus Miami, Jalen Phillips will tee off. I don't know who they're going to have at quarterback. That's a winnable game for the Patriots because of that. Week 6 versus Houston. Do you know what Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson Jr. are going to do to that offensive line? They were going to bully them.
That's ugly.
You could say as bad as the Jaguars are, that Patriots game lines up with them playing the Colts, the Bears, and the Patriots. The Jaguars can win 3 straight games, salvage their season, give Doug Peterson life before he gets fired before the bye week. Eric Armstead, Walker, and Hines Allen, again, are going to eat this offensive line alive. Week 8 versus Jets, I don't know. Week 9 at Tennessee, that's what I like. I don't know if Jacoby can make it healthy to that point, Keegan.
Yeah, they might end up forcing the Patriots' hands, these defensive lines, where if you go get Jacoby Brissett hurt, you got to play him. You got no one else.
You know what? With a situation that can support a rookie quarterback, Drake Maye needs to be your emergency third quarterback. Joe Milton should not be your backup. I need an actual veteran to be the backup. I don't want Drake Maye playing extensively. The hits that Jacoby Brissett have been taking, that guy is a warrior. He is a warrior. I almost said GD Warrior. He is a warrior. He's not going to make it to week 7. And then Drake Maye won't make it to week 13. That is the issue there. That is my worry.
Yeah. Roster moves are coming. I mean, we saw them on Tuesday when we're recording this. They obviously signed another tackle to the practice squad. Like, they're doing anything and everything they can to try to protect Jacoby Brissett. Maybe one of these guys will pan out. They've got a 6'9", 400-pounder just waiting in the wings of the practice squad. Throw that guy out there. At least there's more of him to run around to go kill the quarterback.
Just line him up. Just go jumbo tight end the entire game on the left side. Just why not have 6 offensive linemen out there? There's no rules that say you can't do that.
Yeah.
There are no rules that say you can't do that. Let's get into the Bengals. I mean, all this conversation started with Jayden Daniels just bludgeoning that defense.
Yeah.
0-3 start to the season with the Bengals losing to the Patriots 16-10, the Chiefs by a field goal, and then the Commanders 38-13. A lot of close losses. Joe Burrow looked off at times, but what in your eyes is wrong with this Bengals team?
Yeah, I think they're starting to pick it up. The offense obviously looked a lot better in week 3 than they had. T. Higgins makes a big difference, even though he didn't, he got targeted a few times, but not really what you come to expect from him. The issue is that defense, clearly. Yep. I mean, their defensive tackles have been ravaged by injuries. They just signed Lawrence Guy, old friend in New England, to a contract, so they're trying to get him caught up to speed. Somebody that can stop the run. Anybody. If anybody's willing to step up and stop the run, the Bengals will have you. Mm-hmm. That's been the clear issue. Obviously, they lost to New England in week 1 when the Patriots ran the ball and ran the ball effectively. Mm-hmm. So I think if you look at anything that they need to fix, if they're going to be a contender, which is what I think everybody thought they were going to be coming into the season. Same. They have to stop the run.
They lost DJ Reader in free agency. Sheldon Rankins and BJ Hill did not play in that game.
Yep.
And they just attacked on the ground. Jayden Daniels was 6 for 7 for 81 yards on 3rd and 4th down. Their defense didn't force a single 3rd or 4th down. They only forced 1 3rd or 4th down of more than 2 yards. And on that 4th and 2, Jayden Daniels found Luke McCaffrey for a 30-yard gain.
Yep.
This defense has been terrible. I mean, they allowed 5 touchdowns and a field goal on 6 possessions. Only other 2 possessions that didn't end with a score, the Commanders kneeled it out to end the clock, going to half or end the game. It's his defense.
Yep.
Joe Burrow looked off. Like, he missed that T. Higgins wide open in the end zone, as open as you could be in the NFL. Even the Andres Iosivas touchdown, he was cutting out, and it was still left inside. Like, he's off on his throws. He basically tore the ACL and meniscus equivalent of our knees and his wrist, like on his throwing hand. This is not something it's going to take a while for Burrow. It's the defense, Keegan. You pointed it out. Jayden Daniels did whatever he wanted. He completed 92% of his passes. Cam Taylor-Britt, stop calling it a simple college offense.
He just can't stop sticking his foot in his mouth.
Dude.
Can't stop.
He looked bad.
Yeah.
I mean, you see that. You're like, you did not just do that.
No,
even if you're right, like, again, he doesn't throw over the middle. It's a lot of, like, you don't do that.
No, because you're setting yourself up for failure. Anytime you hear a guy talk about, I mean, remember Willie Gay a couple years ago? He was talking all sorts of trash against the Bills, saying that Josh Allen was a running back and all that. Josh Allen ran for like 140 yards against the Chiefs. So,
yeah,
defenders, a quick lesson to learn. Stop talking. Just shut up and go play. We saw it with Jack Jones. Remember, he liked to talk a lot, and then he got his ass cut. So, Cam Taylor-Britt needs to calm down.
He didn't like to show up to meetings. There's a lot that went into. Bill Belichick is going to put up with that. This Bengals team has me worried. No 0-3 teams ever made the playoffs since the 17-game format came into effect. Not even going to look down the road. It's just this defense is so bad.
Yeah.
In a division with Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson, with Justin Fields finding ways to win, even though they have a bad red zone offense, just in that division with the Bengals, the Steelers, the Ravens, how competitive it is. Who am I leaving from the
Browns?
Yeah, of course. That's why I'm leaving them out of this.
Yeah.
In that division, let alone the AFC, that defense is going to leave them out to dry, and they are going to get exposed.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 1,000%. I think the biggest thing, too, that we're going to start to see towards the end of the season, did they start making people available? T. Higgins coming up on the end of his contract. Jamar Chase doesn't have his figured out.
I like this.
Maybe you throw somebody out onto the trade deadline, see if somebody's willing to bite. So.
I'm going to throw a quick one at you. 2 third-round picks for T. Higgins. I think you need more.
Yeah, who's saying no? It's the Bengals. The Patriots would do that in a heartbeat.
Of course.
I think you need 2 day 2 picks.
2 day 2 picks?
Yeah, so
I just
like
gave you
a
2
second,
thirds.
a second
and
and
the
a
same
third.
day?
Yeah.
Okay, a second and a third.
Or maybe a second and a third same year, or a second and then a third the following year.
Okay, I'll do that. What if I did a third and then a second the following year? That's bad. The second loses value because the team's supposed to get better.
Right.
You want picks now.
Yeah. We'll see.
A third and 2 future fourths? No. I'm bad at trading.
Yeah, we're getting
in the weeds. Everyone. Producer Brendan's going to kick my ass. Enough Kelvin Banks talk. Enough Will Campbell talk. Keegan and I caught up with the Matt Lively. Also, shout out to Matt Lively. I found this out. His dad at one point lived in Somerville. They grew up Red Sox fans. Grew up watching Ness and grew up watching Don and Jerry. Awesome all around. Shout out to Mr. Lively. I used to live in Somerville myself. Well, here's Matt Lively. Mr. Lively's son talking 49ers and Patriots. He's Matt Lively, sports reporter for CBS Sports Bay Area, covering the 49ers out there. Matt, thanks for hopping on Rush. How we doing, man?
I'm great. Happy to be back. Thanks for inviting me back on to talk some Niners.
I love that the last time we had you on, which you were one of the first guests of the program, so it's an honor to have you as a reoccurring guest. It was all the Aiyuk talk, the bonanza. Was he going to end up in New England? What did he want? Aiyuk's looked bad, but the 49ers as a team are off to a 1-2 start, Matt. And against the Vikings, Brian Flores did what he always does against the 49ers, knows how to shut down that offense, and look what he did to the Texans. But then week 3, blowing those multiple 14-point leads to the Rams, what is up with San Francisco right now?
Yeah, it's been really bizarre the last 2 weeks. I mean, you can contribute week 2 to Brian Flores, and it was our cameras that picked up Purdy saying to Flores, hey, your scheme is crazy. And credit to Sam Darnold and Justin Jefferson, who connected on a miracle play, and the rest is history. But week 3, I called a bit of a cupcake game for the Niners. The Rams come in there without Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. Sure, there's injuries on the 49ers side, but they still have such a stacked team. And after the first couple of drives, you're saying to yourself, okay, this is going to be a blowout. The Niners are going to run away with this game. It's a great bounce back spot for them. And then they just couldn't put LA away. The special teams was a nightmare. And something that they made a focus this year was finishing in games, not letting anything slip away. And in the last 6 minutes and 15 seconds, 13 unanswered points by Los Angeles. And the Niners came away with their second loss of the season. You can't blame Brock Purdy in this one. You can't blame the injuries. Jawan Jennings had the game of his life, even better than his Super Bowl performance when he would have been the MVP. But there are some defensive things that have to be cleaned up, and the special teams especially, or else the Niners aren't going to go very far this year. But I'm not panicking yet. It's been 3 weeks. There was expected to be a bit of a hangover. And unfortunately, I do feel like this week is the get-right game and a spot to maybe flex the muscle.
we talk about vibes here a lot with just kind of the way the Patriots have been going the last few years. The vibes are consistently pretty low. I was just wondering where they're at in San Francisco, because you expected to be much further along than you are right now. I don't think anybody expected the Patriots and 49ers to both be 1-2 entering this game. So quick vibe check, not just you, but in and around San Francisco Bay Area.
My vibes personally are well. Thank you for asking.
Love
the
it.
49ers vibes themselves. It wasn't where it was in week 1 after that Jets win. I was in the locker room in Minnesota. You don't get a lot of guys who want to talk to you. It was even worse in Los Angeles. But the thing that makes the 49ers so strong is they have so many all-pros on their team who those guys are leaders. And so it's tough for this team to get too off the mark in terms of what their vision is and in terms of the team morale getting too low. So I'm really not super concerned about whether or not the vibes are off after a 1-2 start. Sure, it's not where you would want it to be, but it's early in the season. So vibes have a chance of getting picked back up on Sunday.
You pointed out what Jayden Daniels did. I mean, he was the first Niners receiver with 3 touchdowns since Terrell Owens. First Niners receivers with a 150 and 3 touchdown game since Jerry Rice. So basically he had like a once-in-a-lifetime performance, which is absurd to see, but also to come in a loss was insane as well. But again, Matt, going back to that Brandon Aiyuk topic of we brought you on to talk about Aiyuk. He's the number 1 wide receiver. He got paid. Debo out. Everyone expected him to be great. I saw the 10 targets on Sunday, but is this a trend of his struggles that you think will continue between him and Brock Purdy, or can it be picked up?
It will be picked up. I pretty much predicted at the beginning of the season, especially for fantasy football owners, you probably don't want to trust Brandon Aiyuk early in the season. There's something to be said for guys missing the start of whether it's training camp in football or spring training in baseball. We've seen it in both sports. That time is so valuable for these guys to get their bodies right, to get the conditioning right, for a wide receiver to be on the same page with his quarterback. You cannot put enough emphasis on how important training camp is to a player. We've seen Trent Williams had to get IVs in 2 games now because the conditioning just isn't there yet. But it's going to get back on track. Nick Bosa, who missed all of training camp last year with a similar contract extension issue, it took him until about week 5 or 6, and then we started to see his usual uptick in how he plays the game at a very high level. And I would expect the same from Brandon Aiyuk. I think this past week was a really nice look at what he can do, getting the 10 targets. Sure, his numbers aren't exactly where you would want them to be, but there were some opportunities for Brock to hit him late in the game, and they were missed opportunities, but they were signs of positivities to come for Brandon Aiyuk. And again, you look at where this New England defense ranks against the pass this year, they're pretty much bottom of the league in terms of defending that. So I think this could be a big game for Aiyuk and Purdy, especially with Debo out and Christian McCaffrey out, to get on the same page, maybe get a long pass in there and a couple touchdowns.
I love that you point out how bad the secondary is. It's not a reflection on Christian Gonzalez. No, but he led up that 1 touchdown against Garrett Wilson. But aside from that, between Chase, DK Metcalf, and Garrett Wilson, he's kept them in check. And again, that was a perfect pass from Aaron Rodgers to beat really good coverage by Seagon. But why the secondary stinks is because we saw smaller corners like Jonathan Jones and Marcus Jones get picked on. Kyle Duggar and Jabril Peppers have to play more in the box with Juwan Bentley down. That leads me to ask, is Jauan Jennings a sustainable level of play? Not 151 and 3, but him being a key contributor, especially Matt at 6'3", 210, that has hunt the matchup. If it's 31 or 25 opposite of him, just target him because he towers over those 2 smaller corners.
I pointed this out on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, during this Rams game. It's been just too long that Jauan Jennings has been buried in the depth chart. He's had to compete with Deebo Samuel and Brandon Aiyuk, who are 2 guys that are wide receiver 1s on any other team in the NFL. He's just had to compete with them early on in his career, but he's a prototypical, wide receiver. You point out his measurables right there, and when he's been given the opportunity to be involved in the playbook, you really look at last year's playoffs. You look at the Super Bowl when, again, he would have been the MVP. He can toss a touchdown pass. He can catch a touchdown pass. And then he went off the way that he did on Sunday. When the Niners start to use Jauan Jennings the way that he can fully be used, it's trouble for defenses, and we've seen it. He makes some insane catches. He's the dependable third and Jawan. That's where you go on third down because he's Mr. Dependable on those downs. So it's really only a matter of time before some team recognizes what he can do every single down while the offense is on the field. And while there's some injuries ahead of him, I think he's just going to continue to have positive games.
From an outside point of view, I think we've seen it too, right? He slid into that role that Kendrick Bourne played during his time in San Francisco, and we saw him come over here. And Kendrick Bourne's obviously been a fan favorite in New England, but in terms of Jennings and the role he plays, do you think it's going to carry over when a guy like Debo comes back, when Ricky Pearsall, who knows when he'll be ready, but whenever he kind of steps in, do you think he'll be able to keep this, not the same level of production, but the same role in the offense, or will they try to kind of move him around and test him out in different areas?
Probably not. I mean, that's the short answer. He's been here for years now, and when there are guys in front of him, Jauan Jennings just doesn't get the snaps or the looks that Debo is getting, that George Kittle is getting. Wait until McCaffrey comes back into this offense. I actually think Ricky Pearsall, who should be ready by week 5, Kyle Shanahan has a tendency to really ease rookies in. That's why you haven't seen Jordan Mason. He's been a young player that just hasn't gotten his touches. So Ricky Pearsall probably doesn't have an immediate impact, but I still think when Debo's back, when George is back, when CMC is back, Jauan will fall down this depth chart, unfortunately.
When you're talking about all these names, and we get into them, and all these questions about offense, obviously Jordan Mason doesn't have that receiving upside that Christian McCaffrey brings to the offense. Obviously, Jauan Jennings isn't the same versatile type of player that Debo is, but we've seen his usage. And Aiyuk hasn't clicked yet. But what will be the recipe for success for the 49ers on Sunday, especially when they're hosting a Patriots defense that we're still trying to figure out ourselves?
I think it's for Kyle Shanahan to just don't overcomplicate things. You've seen just on Sunday against the Rams, the first 2 drives. Oh, this is how you score points. Let Brock Purdy go to work. People still love to doubt Brock Purdy. This game should have been the one where you go, okay, maybe he's legit this time. He is missing Debo and CMC and George Kittle, and he still went out there. He almost threw for 300 yards, and he would have had there not been 6 drops, by the way, 8 incompletions, 6 of them drops. And he tossed 3 touchdown passes. So if I'm Kyle Shanahan, I am letting Brock Purdy rip it. Don't overcomplicate things for him. And look at what the Patriots have allowed already and just go off of that. I think the issues have not been offensive for the Niners so far. They played one really good defensive coordinator in Brian Flores, but they looked great against the Jets. And they looked great last week until things just kind of fell apart. So don't overcomplicate things and let Brock go to work.
We've talked about the one offense worth talking about, but I want to transition to the offense that's really probably not worth talking about with the Patriots. Jacoby Brissett at quarterback, obviously all the offensive line issues. I think anybody who's watched a game knows that it's a mess over there. But the 49ers have a pretty big injury that kind of came across this week with Javon Hargrave out for the season. Where do you kind of see them looking to fill in his role? And obviously the Patriots, they're a run-first team. Gerard Mayo's told everybody, we're telling you we're going to run the ball. You have to stop it. Who slides into that role to try to stop the Patriots' run game? Because we've seen when they can get that going, it kind of opens everything up for Jacoby Brissett and co.
Well, that's pretty much the issue right now is they don't have that guy to fill Hargrave's spot. They let Eric Armstead walk during free agency this year because they wanted somebody next to Hargrave who was more of a run stopper, and they brought in Malik Collins. And so far, it hasn't yielded the best results. And now you lose Hargrave and you go, okay, there's seriously a big issue here. And realistically, the guy who they're going to call on, Mr. Do-It-All, is Fred Warner to stuff the box at this point at the middle linebacker position. But I believe that the Patriots' success on offense is going to be through Ramondre Stevenson and the run game. I don't see Brissett having a big game. I think his prop right now is 162.5 passing yards, which is a bit laughable to me coming off the performance that he had last week. So I really think that the Patriots could have their way in the run game. You couple that with Bosa and Leonard Floyd aren't really getting pressure and aren't getting into the backfield as quickly as you would like. I do think Stevenson could have a nice day for himself.
Yeah, like you point out, that 162 for Jacoby. I guess the books see this will be a blowout in favor of the Niners. The spread's at 10.5, depending where you look. And they can see him chucking. but I don't see him staying in this game and being healthy enough to even get close to that, because they might have to call the dogs off, put in Drake Maye, get him in the game. But I would get away from that whole convo, Matt. We still see an offensive line that has a rookie left tackle that's basically their third string and should be a right tackle, a left guard that could be a backup or third string, depending on who's out there, a center that's a vet, that's solid, a rookie right guard that should be a backup, and their right tackle should be their right guard. For listeners of Foxboro Rush, I keep pointing this out, but that's a reality of what they have to work with. And I say that in a way, pump the brakes on putting Drake Maye in, but we're talking 49ers. What is this defense like for the 49ers? You pointed it out. The pressures aren't there. They're not stopping the run. The Vikings and the Rams had a lot of success on third down and fourth down for LA. What is up with this defense this year? Because you still have Hufanga, you still have Fred Warner, and you still have Bosa. All three guys you can say are the best at their position.
Well, I think you do have to contribute some of this to Nick Sorensen, who's in his first year as a defensive coordinator. And so fans immediately go, well, Steve Wilks didn't work. Why isn't this guy working? He's running the scheme that Kyle Shanahan wants to work. And I think when you look at how complicated an NFL defense can be, just be patient. You have to give some time to fully get on the same page. Nick Bosa is confused about the lack of production. He said that they have to really marinate in that loss. They shouldn't just move on like it was nothing. And so I think the defense is waking up to the fact that something has to be done. And you point out all the issues that New England has on their offensive line. And maybe this is the week where Bosa and Floyd are living in the backfield. But I would just say it's about patience so far for the 49ers. They're missing Dre Greenlaw, and Devondre Campbell has not been someone who's necessarily lived up to the play that the Niners were hoping when they brought him in to be Greenlaw's stopgap until he can come back. Hufanga made his first start and returned to the field just this past Sunday. So they're able to get him back here, and he's only going to get more comfortable as the season goes on. I was confused by some coverages in that Minnesota game. I would have personally had Mooney Ward shadowing Justin Jefferson that entire time, and instead they went with a couple of safeties. So I think it's a learning progress right now, or learning process. And again, unfortunately, I do feel like maybe this is the game in week 4 here where you've had 3 under your belt for things to start to click, and the victims just might be New England.
Yeah, I just imagine Bosa gets back on track again against that awful offensive line play. Matt, it was 35. I'm sure you watched it Thursday night. It was 35 dropbacks, 22 total pressures. Jacoby Brissett is being pressured at one of the highest rates in the NFL as well per dropback. This offensive line doesn't do him justice. The receivers don't get separation. What I looked at too, though, just like watching the last 2 Niners games, there was a block punt against the Vikings. There was that long return allowed against the Rams that set up their game-winning drive. Is special teams an actual red flag with this unit, or are you watching and going, it's 1 or 2 errors and it's 3 games into this season that's been utter chaos? That is something they can get settled down. Because, Matt, right now, I'm just trying to find of where the Patriots can find any sort of success against this San Fran team.
No, the special teams is actually the one place that I would point and go, that is a weakness of the San Francisco 49ers. In Minnesota, Jacob Cowing muffed a punt that the Niners were thankful enough to jump back on, basically at their own 10-yard line. Then you have the fake punt right before halftime that Los Angeles runs. And Kyle Shanahan said, we actually thought they were going to fake it there. They still allowed 7 yards and a first down, which set up a touchdown right before half. And so, it makes you wonder, well, if you guys hadn't seen the fake punt, coming, what would that have looked like? So I would say right now you have a really inexperienced punt returner in Jacob Cowing, who's still trying to get his footing. Jake Moody is as hot and cold as it comes in the National Football League. He was 6 for 6 in week 1. And for all those Niners fans that were hating on him last year, it was like, okay, it's fine. He's in his second year. He's back. He misses a field goal on Sunday that essentially cost him the game. And they've been giving up a ton of yards on returns, whether it's punt or in this new dynamic kickoff. So special teams, maybe that's where New England has a bit of an upper hand. I don't think that wins them a game or gets them particularly close. But yes, I'm with you there. If New England can capitalize on something, it is on the special teams units of the 49ers.
I'm trying to find some silver lining. I'm trying to find some matchup that can give a leeway. Hey, Jeremy Springer, now the special teams coordinator for the Patriots, spent a lot of time with the Rams, probably making some phone calls. So let's all put it right here. This is where you bookmark it in the pod. Watch for the Patriots to pull off some special teams madness against the Niners, because I'm sure Jeremy Springer is cooking the books right now and ripping his phone like crazy. Matt, before we let you go, real quick, what's a prediction for Sunday?
And I'm going to go 27-10 San Francisco. It could get higher on that SF side, but with all the injuries that they're experiencing right now, I think that's a safe number to go with. But it's a 10.5-point spread. I'm okay laying those points with the Niners at home.
Yeah, closest I'll go 27-13. I think the one thing I'll give the Pats, all those missed tackles they had against the Jets, that's going to be trouble if they do the same thing. Jordan Mason is just so unpredictable. One thing we can always predict is you, Matt Lively. My man, thanks for hopping on the pod. Appreciate you always bringing the great insight out from San Francisco. He's Matt Lively, CBS Sports Bay Area, covers the 49ers. Make sure to throw him a follow. Matt, thanks for hopping back on the show, brother.
Guys, love coming on. Thanks so much for having me.